My name is Scott Schanzenbach. I'm an assistant to the bishop in the New Jersey Synod. I'm here to talk to you about the challenge of encouraging stewardship leaders who want to learn practical and applicable ways to grow the spiritual practice of generosity. Growth happens when you develop stewardship models that raise levels of expectation for the pastor, for staff, for leaders, members, and visitors alike. Sustainable and renewable stewardship efforts must fit into your local community and be rooted in the assets that are available to you. Always budget the assets that you have, not what you wish you had or what you think you need. Now, before we continue, we'll want to ask 4 key questions. Number 1, how can we inspire vision to raise giving expectations? Number 2, how can we innovate new ministry models that fit congregational and community needs? Number 3, how can we ignite leadership change? And 4, how can we improve stewardship and generosity ministries to all levels of givers? Now, one helpful component in this endeavor is to create a narrative mission budget. In the last video segment, you were provided with a process by which you calculated the congregation's giving potential. That exercise allowed you to estimate the assets that are available for God's work through your community. Now it's time to allocate those assets through a dedicated plan for spending, a budget. In recent months, you've heard me suggest that renewable and sustainable budgets might follow a 10-5-55-30 formula in which a congregation shares 10% of their annual income as mission support, saves 5%, dedicates 55% to staff costs, and 30% to facilities and ministry expenditures. This is a helpful guide. It also tells part of the ministry story. When up to 85% of your resources are dedicated to staff and facilities, it's a challenge to see how that translates into ministry that cultivates a Christ-centered fellowship where non-religious and nominally religious people enter into a deeply committed relationship with Christ. A narrative mission budget is intended to be the mission story of your congregation's ministry and how sharing by participants in the congregation changes and saves lives. It's an educational and interpretive tool that inspires, reframes ministry priorities, and grows generous hearts. So how does mission budgeting work? First, prepare a line item budget. This is the budget that you usually present to the congregation. It's an accounting tool that tells you who you are going to pay, not what you're going to do. This budget should always be balanced on your assets. If it contains a deficit, it must be accompanied by a significant stewardship plan that will seek to address the income side of the plan and a ministry review plan that will address the expense side of the budget. Then follow these steps. Step 1. Articulate 4, no more than 6, ministry centers that reflect God's purpose for your congregation. You will need to make some decisions about the categories that are right for your parish. These categories will be broader than any one specific ministry. They might sound like pastoral care and fellowship, cultivating committed Christians, learning and faith practice, mission support and sharing, hospitality among the least and the lost. Notice that you do not have categories like administration, staff, buildings, or fixed costs. They do not appear in a mission budget. Step 2. A small team can put together the allocation plan. Begin by getting your staff to track their time for a month. They can review day planners and allocate time among the different areas of ministry that you've already identified. Treat them as directional. Calculate what percentage of staff costs are dedicated to each of these ministry areas. Then review your direct program costs for materials and supplies as they apply to each of our ministry areas. And finally, conduct an audit of building use. How many total hours is your building in use each week? For what purposes is the building used? What percentage of your total building and administrative costs are charged against your different ministry areas? Create a pie chart that reflects the allocation of resources in each ministry center. Create a second pie chart that captures volunteer hours dedicated for the same purposes. Now, don't get caught in the trap of delivering absolute accuracy. You have permission to treat the mission budget as a mission-defining document. Step number 3, review these charts. Does your allocation of resources appropriately reflect your mission priorities? Redirection of the pastor's use of time or the investment of volunteers can radically reframe the ministry of the congregation without costing any additional dollars. Volunteers who might work in the confirmation program may free the pastor's time to dedicate more energy and time to witnessing in the community. It costs the congregation no extra money, but reframes their ministry. Step 4, tell the stories of the individual slices of the parish life pie. Tell the stories of real people touched by the ministry of the congregation. This mission budgeting is an evolving process. Each year you'll get better at this process as you add stories and volunteer time and talent. Remember, you're on a journey. People will begin to think of sharing in the support of the congregational ministry in a new way. Be certain to make a line item budget available. Tell the congregation members that there are copies of the completed line item budget available in the parish office, and have copies available at the congregation meeting. Do not compromise transparency. As a church, be courageous in your desire to talk about money and ministry in a new way.